Hey there, everyone. This is Aaron St. Dennis, the Mad Scientist. Welcome to the Mad Science Lab. Today, I'm going to be continuing on my Guy series. Um, it's a series we'll be dropping with a different analyst once a day, probably till right around the draft, maybe a little after. Today, my guest will be John Arrington. John, thanks for joining me. You want to tell everyone where we can find you?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm John Arrington at Dynasty Coach A on Twitter. I'm the host of the Debbie Devotional and the Full Tilt Debbie podcast. And I'm also a writer at DLF, just like Aaron.
The more important question I seen as we were doing the countdown timer: what you drinking? What's in the glass? That looked
Oh,
like
I'm nothing special tonight. A lot of
oh,
times, I'll go with like a Basil Hayden or something like that. But I was being cheap today, and so I bought Jim Beam Extra Aged or whatever it's called.
oh. Where are you located right now? I'm in
Tampa,
Canada,
Florida.
so okay. I don't know if they have this over there, but I discovered this a year or two ago. It's called Jim Beam Red Stag, and it's black
Yeah,
cherry flavored bourbon.
black
And if you
cherry.
mix it with ginger ale, oh my god, is it deadly?
It's good. I got a little too crazy with it, and
Ah,
it's like I had one of those nights where you're like, oh, I don't know if I can drink that again, so
it's
I had to
dead to
give it
you
a little
now.
break.
I had that with when Pink Whitney first came out. I searched everywhere for it. We only got Pink Whitney maybe a year or two ago because we're Canada and everything's behind. So I went out and I found a place that had it. I bought me 6 bottles, and we were laid off for COVID. So we were doing like Skype drinking parties with all our coworkers, and we were doing drinking games, and I was polishing off a bottle of Pink Whitney every night, and by the 5th night, I was like, "You take the blast bottle. I never want to see this again." I've never
Yep,
touched
that's
it
how it
since.
works. It's
Yeah,
it's probably been about a year since I've had that red stag, and I mean, I'm not saying I'll never drink it again, but I don't know. Like I got pretty heavy into it, and I haven't had it since.
you know what? I don't even drink all that much. It's just I've got a list of things I can no longer drink just from my late teens and college years. It's like no Sambuca, no tequila, no Jaeger. Like I'm running out of stuff to drink, so I stick to beer now. It's just not working out.
Yeah,
All
I
right,
love
now that we've done my introduction to alcoholism, let's move this along. I will introduce your first guy. Your first guy is Oklahoma wide receiver Marvin Mims, checking in at 5'11", 183, runs a 4.38 time. I have him on DLF's Superflex rookie ADP, going as 24th overall, so the last pick in the second round. Seems like solid value. I would have thought he would have been a little higher into that, maybe just outside the Hyatt group there, but seems like decent value. What are your thoughts? What do you like about him?
He might be the most undervalued wide receiver in this draft class, at least in my opinion. I've always loved Mims. He kind of fell off in his sophomore season. He didn't do nearly as much at Oklahoma that year that we were hoping that he was going to do. But there was a lot going on. There was a lot of transition and everything else. So I guess there's reasons why it could have been. But in that junior year, this past season, like you saw everything that you really wanted to see. And I don't really understand. Like he's a good size. He's 5'11", 183, like you
That he
said.
is.
Like he's not one of the small guys where you're like, oh, he's only 5'8", or he's not that. He has plenty of size. Maybe he's not the most physical guy in the world or anything like that. But I'll tell you what, that speed shows up. At least when you're looking at the metrics and everything. I've heard I don't get into film analysis as much. I've heard that he needs to work on his route running a little bit. Honestly, from what I'm seeing in the numbers, I'm sure that that's true, but I don't know how much it matters because it seems like he has it already. And we can dive into the numbers if you want.
Yeah. In one sec, we will. Just my only thought was that it's weird he's ranked so low in a wide receiver class that largely profiles of guys that are oversized slot receivers. You'd think a guy with decent size and decent speed would have gone would be a little more highly sought after, but maybe it is the
Right.
numbers. What are some of the numbers you got? You said you got the numbers on you? Or?
Yeah, oh yeah, I always got numbers. That's my
Yeah.
whole that's
Good.
all
I'm a
my
spreadsheet
thing.
warrior, so I can do numbers in the science lab. Go fire away.
Right. Well, but it is kind of funny because you were saying you thought he would be a little closer to Jalen Hyatt. Well, Jalen Hyatt's whole thing is that he's fast. Like he's this fast wide receiver that can burn you over the top. Well,
Yeah.
guess what? Marvin Mims is faster than him. So
I said fourth. So that's what I don't understand. So everyone, Hyatt was expected to run fast and ran what 4.4 even.
I think it was right at there. Yeah, like 4.4.
So his draft stock slipped. So you'd think Mims running faster would have moved up a little, but he doesn't. He's kind of the forgotten guy where I don't know if he like profiles as a superstar or if he does anything exceptionally well, but he certainly looks to be a value and a potential. I don't know if I see him as a 1, but he could be a 2 or 3.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain things that I look at, like I try to get really basic with some of the stats that I look at, just so you can really get an idea of how these players really played and how they scored their points, or how they got their yardage in college. And so one of the stats that I look at is yards per reception. Extremely basic, about as basic as you can get. But it tells you a lot about that player. And, the guys at the top, like your JSN, your Jordan Addisons, like they're 15.4 yards, 14.3. Quentin Johnston, who's another speed guy, is at 19.0. And then Jalen Hyatt's at 16.4. Marvin Mims is at 19.5. So, I mean, he's getting almost 20 yards per reception, every single, and that's over his entire college career.
That's impressive.
That's not even his best season. His best season was at, I think, 22. Yeah, 22 yards per reception. And that was in, I think, his sophomore year.
Who was his quarterback then? It wasn't Rattler still, was it? Rattler was going to South Carolina, wasn't it, by then?
No, he had Caleb Williams in his sophomore year, with the transition. So it was Rattler to begin the year.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I knew he started with some shaky quarterback play at one point, but
so
Caleb Williams wasn't the shaky quarterback.
Well, but he was also a true freshman, starting right away. So he wasn't Caleb Williams from last year when so there was some growing pains there. It wasn't the perfect season, and then he had Dylan Gabriel this past year, and things were a little bit better. But I just think that when you look at even just that basic stat, you see like he's explosive, he has burst, he's athletic. Obviously, I could have told you that before he ran a 4.38, But then you get into some of the other things like PPR points per touch. That's one of my favorite stats. Like if you can score points in college, you can score points in the NFL. Like it's actually literally proven. You have 3.1, and these are all the top guys: 3.1, 3.0, 2.9, 2.8, 3.5, 3.6. Marvin Mims 3.8 PPR points per touch. So he's scoring points. He's not just catching balls and falling down or whatever. Like he's getting you touchdowns. He's getting you receptions. He's getting all that kind of good stuff. Almost 1,100 yards receiving for his best year. That's not like top tier or elite, but it's still pretty good. You love to see anything over 1,000 yards, and shows that they can not only do it for just like 2 or 3 games, but over the course of an entire season. And then, of course, yards per team pass attempt, everybody loves. People say, you got to be over 2.7 yards per team pass attempt. Well, he's at 2.7. So he's right there. It's not maybe the elite, but like Quentin Johnston that's going in the first round, he's at 2.4. And people are drafting him as like the wide receiver 3 in this class. So I'm the biggest proponent of never look at just one metric. Like I like to get the whole profile, the whole picture there. And so, he's at least meeting those thresholds in every single category there. And then one of my favorite, if not my favorite metric, is receiving yards market share. And he had a 27% market share in his best season, which is, once again, maybe not like the elite of the elite, but that's also why I don't have him in the elite territory. I have him in the very good territory.
When was his breakout year? Do you have it with you?
Yeah, his breakout year was 18. So
so
his freshman season. Yeah, that was the thing. He blew up his freshman year, and then he kind of fell off that sophomore year. But you could probably blame it on the QBs or. Yeah, I mean, or I don't like to make excuses, so I'm not even saying like whatever. Maybe he just had a down year. Who knows? But then he blows right back up in his junior year, so I'm really not concerned about it.
Where do you think he goes in the NFL draft? I'm thinking he goes day 2. I don't know if he sneaks into round 2, more round 3, maybe a 4. What are you thinking?
I have him like early 3rd, and I mean honestly, I shouldn't even say I have him. I use NFL mock draft database as like who I use to see where they project him, and they're projecting him to go at pick 74 overall. So that'd be like really early 3rd.
Yeah, I think if he goes there, he's got to move up higher than 24. 24 overall,
Yeah.
that I feel like that's what, wide receiver 8, 9, 8
Yeah.
ish.
Yeah.
He's got, wow. I don't know. This doesn't seem like, I know, what was it last year? We had what, 8 receivers go in the first 16 picks. This doesn't seem like the year where we're going to have 8 receivers go in the first 2 rounds. Like, if he goes day 3, he might be top 10 drafted wide receiver.
Yeah, but I also wonder, I mean, last year kind of set a precedent. I mean, maybe it was just a one-off thing, or maybe it is like the new norm for the NFL, but these teams are
Lose
like,
their
we
mind.
don't want to pay these wide receivers when, you know, when they get to year 4 or 5 or whatever. We don't want to pay them $100 million. We want to get them for free or for cheap in the NFL draft. And so they pushed up all these guys. And I'm not saying they weren't deserved. Like the wide receivers.
Thornton and
Yeah. But the wide receivers from last year were really, really good. I mean, for the most part, not necessarily the Tyquan Thorntons or the Valus Jones or
I was
anything
gonna
like
say
that.
Valus, he went round 2 or 3. 2?
I think
2
it was
for
2.
Valus? I think it was 2.
I want to say it was 2.
Yeah, I know there was a couple stinkers in there, but
oh yeah. But I think that, you know, there's a chance he's being projected in the early 3rd, but I mean, there's a chance he gets pushed up ahead of that because I mean, these teams really desperately need these wide receivers and they want them cheap and they want them on good deals. I mean, I don't think he makes it into the first round. Like, it just doesn't seem possible from where they're projecting him.
Second round, I would say, is his ceiling.
Yeah, but I do think he could get into the second round. And at that point, like you said, he cannot be the 24th overall pick or you know, or even the wide receiver 8 or 9 or anything like that. He has to be higher than that.
Beginning of the second round if he goes in a second round there.
Exactly.
All right, with that said, who do you want next? Downs or Miller? Dealer's choice.
Let's do we did a wide receiver. Let's do Miller.
All righty. Just a sec. Oh, there we go. We got him up. All right. His second my guy is TCU running back Kendre Miller, which is one of the larger backs, 5'11", 215. I had him, and I had this yesterday. I don't think – are you seeing data on him? Did he do anything at his pro day? Because I had somebody else chose him as their my guy, and we couldn't find anything on him. I couldn't find his pro day. He's nursing some kind of undisclosed injury, isn't he? Or did he just not run?
He had an MCL tear or a sprained MCL at the last game or the semifinals of the college football playoffs, and so he hasn't done anything since then.
Did he play
he didn't do the combine.
No, okay, that explains.
Yeah. They said, oh, he might play, but I think it was just kind of like BS the whole time. I really do because there's no way he was playing with a sprained MCL. It just wasn't going to happen. But no, unfortunately, he didn't do anything at the combine. He didn't do anything at the pro day. I actually wrote an article for DLF about Kendre Miller, and I said in the article, the pro day's coming up in a couple days. I'm really excited to see what he does because I honestly thought he was going to do something at the pro day. And then
I was tuned in for Quentin, and I don't remember seeing him. He stayed healthy just long enough to rip my heart out against Michigan. That's all he did. He just hates me.
Pretty much.
I have a site that I do use, and theirs is just an estimate or based on past like high school numbers or early college. They have him listed as a 4.58 40-yard dash, which is average. So he's not slow, he's not fast. But again, I'm not sure if that's an earlier time or if that's just their projection. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah,
go ahead.
I mean, I think that I agree with that. Like, I don't think he's slow, but I don't know that he's like super fast or anything. That's not his game. Like you said, he's a good size, which is not something we have a lot of in this running back class. And so it's actually really nice.
Backs.
Yeah, we have a lot more of the small guys, even though I like a lot of them. But it really does suck that Kendre didn't do any of the testing because I love Kendre Miller. I really think that he is. I really think that he is a top 5 running back in this class. Unfortunately, with not doing any of the testing or anything, I think it's going to hurt his draft capital. And I really don't care about draft capital all that much when it comes to the other positions, but when it comes to running backs, it's pretty damn important. So I mean, if he ends up going to like the 4th or 5th round or something like that, it's just going to kill him.
Absolutely, yeah. He's one of the, like you said, I think he could go up higher because he's one of the few running backs that profiles as a potential 3-down back for size. But the issue for me is going to be, does he fall with the injury concerns? And, do you know anything about whether or not he projects to be ready for training camp? Because if he's not ready and the NFL injury, the NFL gets scared off by the injury, and he falls late day 3, he's going to be significantly lower than 21 overall right now, according to DLF. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think he'll be ready. I think honestly, he's probably ready right now. He probably was ready, like as far as being healthy for the pro day. He just might not have been in 100% like shape and all that kind of stuff. And so, what's worse than not doing anything is going out and running like a 4.65 because you weren't in 100%, or you weren't in like workout shape. So I think that might
Isaiah
be like
Spiller.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to be that. I think that might be a reason why he didn't do anything. He was just like, you know what? They see what I did. They saw me kick Zach Evans the hell out of TCU. Like they everyone saw all this stuff. I'm just gonna like rest on my laurels there. But we're talking about the speed and everything. Of course, it's all projected. We truly have no idea exactly how fast he is. But one of the big metrics that I look at with running backs is big time run rate. And, a big time run is considered a play over 20 yards. Any play over 20 yards, that's a big time run. And he's at 8.4%, which is pretty damn good. Like, you really like to be over that, like 6 or 7%. Like, just for reference, like Jahmyr Gibbs was at 7.8%. Zach Charbonnet was at 9.7%. And then, you have Kendre Miller at 8.4%. So, like, it's not like elite. It's not anything amazing to where you're going to be like, oh my God, this guy's a track star or something. But like he definitely shows the ability he has that enough burst, he has enough agility and everything to break tackles, break these big runs. And that's what I like to see.
You said, I got completely sidetracked there in my head for a second. You said that he didn't want to run and completely tank his stock. And I had last season flashbacks to a tight end. Do you remember which one? He was my tight end too, and is now non-existent. Do you remember Jalen Wittermeyer?
Wittermeyer, that's right. He ran
God, I've never seen anyone go from top 2 or 3 tight end in pre-draft ranks to, let's just forget this guy. So, maybe Kendre not running did himself a favor and didn't follow the Wittermeyer path.
Yeah, or even the now my
Spiller,
mind just went blank. Kyron Williams from last year as well. Oh, good God.
And then he had a foot injury, and he's non-existent.
Yeah, it's like that's the worst thing you can do is go run a 4.7, as a running back. You just you're just done at that point. So I'm glad that he didn't do anything when he wasn't healthy. But I love Kendre. I think that I really do think he's a top 5 back in this class. And so if he falls, I think he's going to be a steal for people. It's one of those things where I'm like, I want him to go early because I love the player, but at the same time, I'm perfectly fine getting him later in the second.
Yeah, I don't mind that. I think that that ADP, I think, is really, well, I guess you could say this for a lot of that second round players. The second round of most drafts, it's going to be so dependent on landing spot and draft capital. You're going to see that shake up. Right now, it's the wild, wild west. You just kind of go get your my guy there. That's really going to settle it. He could shoot up significantly if he gets good capital. If he falls to, round 7, round 6, he might slip into the 3rd or 4th. But that brings me to your final my guy, North Carolina wide receiver Josh Downs. A little bit smaller than Mims, 5'9", 171. Slower too, right? I think what was it, Mims, 4.38?
Yeah, he was 4.38 for Mims.
This one, Downs is 4.48, so he's smaller and slower, and yet he is going 12 picks an entire round ahead of Mims. I don't understand this.
Well, I mean, he is slower per se because obviously he runs a 4.48 compared to a 4.38. But I'll tell you what, that's not that slow. It's just maybe slow for a smaller guy.
No. Compared to Mims, I just meant.
Well, yeah, of course.
Their size.
But I'll tell you what, his agility score and like those kind of metrics and his 10 times split was all elite. If you, it's kind of narrative-y, but if you were on Twitter the day that he had his pro day, people were saying like the scouts at the program or at the pro day were saying it was the best workout they had ever seen and all this other stuff. And like I said, it's kind of narrative-y and whatever. Maybe his agent, paid some people to say that, but you love hearing that kind of stuff.
I do.
So, but yeah, honestly, I love Downs. He's like, if I had to choose my guy in this draft, it's definitely Josh Downs. I love him, and like why. Whereas I do really like Marvin Mims. I have Downs at least like 4 spots ahead of him. So I would much rather have Downs, and it's just because I mean he's. Whereas with Mims, maybe we have question marks about the route running and all that kind of stuff. We have no question marks with Josh Downs. That dude can be an inside slot runner or slot receiver. He can be an outside guy. He has red zone, like he's a red zone threat. Like he's a goal line threat. He's all of that. He can play inside, outside, whatever you need him to do. And so the only thing that people can say about him is that he's 5'9", 171. And
he reminds me of Devonta Smith, but that could just be the height comparison.
Yeah,
yeah. I feel like he plays a lot like him too, which is a good thing. But
yeah, I mean he has the ability to high point the ball like he's 6'2" and like 200 something pounds in the end zone. And I mean, if you look at his games, his freshman season, he had like 8 receptions, but he had 3 touchdowns. It just shows his ability to be, be a threat in the red zone. And, so I think that a team is going to fall in love with him. They're going to be able to use him, whether they decide to start him off in the slot because he's smaller, or whether they try to put him on the outside, or hopefully they get a smart coach that can play him in both and move him around and really screw up a defense. Then, I think that's the best way to use him. But regardless, there's not even a bad place for him to go to. Like there's no bad landing spot or anything like that beyond just a terrible QB there, but like, I think in any system he can fit.
You think he creeps into the first round?
I think he's going to be a first round pick. I know the consensus is not there. Like once again, with NFL mock draft database, he's at pick 46. But man, I once again, I think that these wide receivers just get pushed up recently. And if he's not in the first round, I think he'll be that like T Higgins, beginning of the second round kind of deal. I don't think it's going to be too long before you hear his name on day 2.
You have a team you think you'd like to see him go to where he fits best, or?
Honestly, like I said, I don't know. I don't know that I have a team that that I love more than others. Obviously, like, anyone you would love for them to go to Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, for obvious reasons.
He's going earlier than 112 if he goes to Mahomes in rookie draft. He goes then he becomes what is he for you right now? Your wide receiver 4?
He's my wide receiver 3.
3? Well, he becomes wide receiver 1 if he goes to Mahomes. I mean, he probably won't pass JSN, but
yeah, I think it'd be tough to pass up JSN, but like there's some great landing spots. But honestly, like I said, I don't think there's too many bad landing spots unless, like, for whatever reason the Bengals drafted him or something. Then maybe maybe that wouldn't be all that fantastic. But I don't think they're gonna, unless they're trying to replace Higgins and they don't want to pay him.
That was kind of the first thing I thought. It'll kill his value. Well, yeah, it'll probably kill his value as a rookie, but.
I mean, we've seen Tyler Boyd be pretty damn good as that wide receiver 3 on the team, and then
I think Downs would also be better than that, though.
Oh yeah, I think he is too. I think he's a better player, but at the same time, I also think that that would signal that they're not going to pay T Higgins, and so yeah, maybe his rookie year, maybe Downs doesn't have this amazing season, but then year 2, you're probably pretty damn set up at that point. So it still wouldn't be a bad landing spot. Like, there's not too many landing spots where I'm going to be like, oh, well, no, I'm not drafting Downs now, or like I'm dropping him down my board. Like it's not going to happen. I love him too much.
Sounds like a year 2 buy low in that scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. But I love Downs. Get him to Kansas City. Let's do it.
All right. Well, that's the final guy. Thank you for your thoughts and input. You want to take one more chance to tell everyone where they can find your work?
Absolutely. Like you said, I am at a writer at DLF. I have a Campus to Canton article coming out, I think tonight. I thought it was supposed to come out earlier, but who knows? Maybe it's tomorrow.
You ever write so many you forget when they come out, and you see DLF. I've had it a few times at DLF because they don't tag you in some of them, and they post it out, and I go to click on the article, and I'm like, huh, shit, I wrote that.
Every once in a while, but yeah, so I have an article coming out like today or tomorrow or whatever. If you're interested in getting into Campus to Canton leagues, or if you just want to know what they're all about, I'm starting a whole series, and this is article number 2 in the series. Go back and check out the first one, and then obviously you can find me on the Devy Devotional podcast and the Full Tilt Devy podcast.
Well, thank you very much for joining me. It was great. You were very knowledgeable with your guys. We ran longer than most, but you filled it up nicely. So
thank you.
Well, thanks everyone. Again, I'm Aaron St. Dennis, the FF Mad Scientist. That's where you can find me on Twitter at FF Mad Scientist. You can catch my work at the League Winners, King Fantasy Sports, DLF, and Player Profiler, my rankings on Fantasy Pros, and my YouTube channel at youtube.com/FF Mad Scientist. Thanks again to my guest, John Arrington. This is the Mad Science Lab, and that was my guys episode with John Arrington. The series will continue, one per day. Like I said, hopefully right up into the draft. I hope I have enough of them. May run a few days past. So tune in every day to find more. Thanks everyone for catching the show. I'll talk to you next time.